Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Pop Art Hunter channel. Today we're going to be doing a framing, and this is a framing that I actually created the background, or recreated the background. I was able to snag an image from the film, and I had to go through and kind of recreate some stuff, and it was actually more complex. I didn't actually record me doing it. I'm going to do that in the future for a different framing, but I will show you some probably before and after images in that video when I do that. But we will have a how to make and create and edit backgrounds at some point, but not this time. I have the finished background that I made. We're going to go ahead and put that in the frame, and we're going to frame this piece from the Don Bluth classic, All Dogs Go to Heaven. Let's go ahead and get started. So this is what we're looking to frame here. This is a cell from All Dogs Go to Heaven. It has Anne-Marie, I want to say Annabelle, Anne-Marie and Charlie, and this is a 16 field cell, and you can see, just get the edges up here, that it's fairly large. Again, 16 fields are mighty hardy when it comes to size, and the figures on here are just, they're great, and they're pretty well centered. They're not too small of a size, but on a 16 field cell, they look just a little smaller than I would like. This is the background that came with it. And a lot of times I like to frame the cells so that some of the background is showing and some of the notes and the scribbles and the little notations of scenes and stuff. But for this one, I actually recreated the cell from the scene in the movie exactly as it appeared. And I don't want any of the extras to show. I want to see what it looks like just to have it as it would be seen in the movie, pretty much. And so I'm going to get rid of this particular piece. I don't need that anymore. But the other thing I decided, because I'm going to do that, I wanted to show, instead of putting it in a mat like this, which is typically the size I would use for some of the cells I have to show as much of the cell as possible, I've decided to opt for a smaller frame job to only show what I want you to be able to see, so it looks as much like the film as possible. So these are the particular pieces that I'm going to be using. So before we get to touching the cell too much more, I'll just leave that right there. We're going to go ahead and open up a frame. This is a 16 by 20 frame. This is what I typically use for all of my 16 field cells, or sketches, drawings, etc. There's some exceptions. I'm going to be doing a framing video, or I've already done a framing video, depending on when you see this. And I did that for Aladdin. It was some sketches of Jafar. And I did those in a 13 by 19 frame, but for a particular reason. So you can watch that to find out the reasons why. But for the most part, 16 field cells, I like this bigger frame to identify that it's a bigger cell. But again, this is one of the few times I'm going to be using a smaller mat so that I can only show certain parts of the cell. So we're going to go ahead and put this right in there. And actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and not put that in there because we don't have the acrylic in yet. So I replaced all my frames, the cheap acrylic here, with some 1/10 inch UV acrylic. And I especially do that for my cells. There's a few framing jobs that I will do for some inexpensive cells or for some less expensive drawings where I don't use these. And as I always mention, getting it started is the worst part. They just need they just need to have a little tab on there. So, okay, perfect. So got that started. So we'll take off this plastic bit here. It takes a little bit of upper body strength, not too much. Alright, so that goes right in here. And for this, I'm going to pull this up. Now, for purposes of this video, I kind of forgot, but I also kind of don't need, and I also kind of don't care about the reference cell to show you exactly what it looks like in the film and try to set it up exactly. I sort of have it in my memory enough that I should be able to line it up properly, but also because of the way I frame these, if I don't like the alignment, I can easily just pop off the back and make a couple minor alterations. So this is the background that I reproduced from the film. And if you've seen the film, and I'll try to show before or after here for this, but essentially all of this stuff in here that is, the outline of the figure essentially, I had to completely recreate from scratch. So a lot of this material here was not actually there, and I had to recreate it. So that's why I kind of have an idea of where it's going to go. But to line it up just perfect, I might have to crack this back open and just slightly alter that 16 filled cell. Also, it might not be perfectly aligned just because it might not fit in there centered the way I want it. So I want to make sure that I look at that. I'm more concerned with it looking great as a finished piece than being so exactly lined up. So if Charlie's toe is touching this apple or something like that, for me, it's close enough to the original film that I'm not going to worry too much about that, especially if that's going to mean that they're going to be way over here or way over here. It's going to be hard to frame it exactly. So we'll just see how that works out with the framing. Until, I was going to say until you get to framing, you don't really know. You do know if you measure correctly and you do all that. I don't have time to measure that specifically, etc. So on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cell. I usually use one glove when doing this, so I can try to be as protective as possible of these pieces, with also having, with also not compromising my ability to have dexterity during the framing process. And so I'm just going to put 2 pieces of tape, and this is a museum acid-free tape I'm using here. I'm just going to put a couple pieces there so I kind of see what this looks like once this background is on. And so I'm just going to roughly put that somewhere so it kind of fits on there just a bit. I'm just going to see what it looks like roughly in general. Oh, that looks great. That looks really good. I like that. So I'm going to be limited in some ways because of just how precise I got with this particular background. So I'm not going to have a lot of wiggle room to move things around. And so that's something I'll have to just kind of cope with. But I can adjust the cell slightly up or down to meet those needs. So for me, now I'm going to take this next mat here, and I'm going to put this in and see what flexibility I actually have to move that up and down, because I want that to look really good. I think that looks actually great right there. No white is showing of any of the edges. Everything looks fairly in alignment, just not too crooked or anything like that. So I'm going to tape this down, and then I'm going to look at the cell to see if I can move the cell up or down to align just a little bit better for this. And I don't mind putting an extra bit of tape just to make sure the stuff is secure. And there's not as much of a worry on something that is reproduced that is not going to get damaged or it's not going to have any issues with it. So I just double check these. Also try to put more tape on 16 field cells than 12 field cells, just because this tape is, again, it's archive museum quality tape, so the adhesive is not as abrasive and not as sticky and doesn't hold as long. And so occasionally some of these will loosen over time. If there's too few, it could possibly loosen to the point where it gives way and it just falls off, and you don't want that. So I believe that this is close. But actually, you know what? Through the magic of cinema, I'm going to go ahead and look up an image of that particular scene, and I can try to show you that here. And we're back. Okay, so here is the scene from the movie as it is seen in the movie. And so what I'm going to try to do is line this up a little bit closer. I thought I had a pretty good memory, and I think I do. I just thought it would probably be more interesting for you to see that so you can kind of tell the differences between them and see how close we can come here. So I'm just going to try to hold all of this stuff together. And let's take a look. Oh, yeah. So we definitely want this much lower and possibly to the right a little bit. So if I hold this, I'm thinking about it because it's reverse when you open it. So if I put this, flip it over, I want to make sure that we get his feet a little further to the left. And so I can probably put the background a little further to the right, but we definitely want it down a little bit further. And so, what I'm going to do is try to align this a little better. So for me, I really wish I wouldn't have taped as much here on this back part, because I think I want to maybe shift this over a little bit. But I'm going to actually pull up a piece and see how far I actually have the ability to move it. Because for this, it's all the way to each edge. There's no extra space there. So I'm only going to be able to do that through this background piece as far as moving it left or right. Up or down, I have plenty of space with the cell, so that's really good. So this isn't too bad. It just takes getting one side up, and then you can sort of like rip everything off. And this tape is not too terribly adhesive. So, okay. Yeah, so for this, let's see. We wanted his feet more closer towards that. So let's go ahead and try to take a look. We're just going to lift it up here for a second to see how close I can get this. I know it's hard to see on your end. I'm just making... Okay. So I think we want it as close to that edge as possible. Okay, yeah, so that's pretty close. There is a little hint of white showing on that side. Let me go ahead and take a look now. Yeah, okay, that looks pretty good. And that's as far over as I can get it. So essentially, if you look at his feet, once I move it down, his foot is going to be over the, the top of the apple or right on the middle of the apple. And it could be a little further over to the right. But I have no more background to shift over left, and I have no more cell to shift over right. So this is going to be as good as we're going to get it there. And I will secure this a little bit better in just a bit. But this cell, we have the ability to move up or down, and that we can do a substantial amount of moving for. So I'm actually going to just try to see how far we can move it. This might take a little trial and error. Sometimes I'll do these cells a little differently with the backgrounds to try to make this process just a tish easier, but for this I only have 2 pieces of tape, and so it should be relatively easy to kind of move back and forth. I'm actually going to try just to move that over just a little bit. And that's also why I get that extra 1/4 inch. So I do a 1/4 inch around instead of an 1/8 inch, so that gives me a little bit of extra playroom, just a tiny bit. I could go a little bit more, but I want most of the cell showing. And I feel like I have moved it the wrong way. This is very jarring. So not only do I have it, I have it upside down, and it's backwards when you look at it from the front versus the back. I'm going to shift it over a little bit that way. I should have also looked at the up and down position, but I did not. All right, so let's take a look at that. So yeah, that's a little bit better. That's about as good as we're going to get there. And then I'm going to shift it down just about a 1/2 inch or so. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. That's why we just put a couple pieces of tape. We can move it, and then at the end we will secure it more thoroughly. So that's about as... Well, that shifted. That's about as much as I'm willing to go down, because that tape is touching the bottom of the mat there. So I think that's about as low as we're probably going to go here. So let's double check and make sure it looks good. And if that does look good, we can then go ahead and try to get it. Oh, so for this, we could actually go up a little bit higher. I actually went just a little bit too low. Look at the scientific method we're using of just, what do they call it? Trial and error. And so let's go ahead and get this up again. And I'm just guesstimating here, which is not the best probably method to use, but it's what I have in my repertoire. Just so I'm aware, I have no room on this side, and I have some room on this side of the cell, just in case we have some options there. I actually think that looks pretty good. I may move it up just a tish higher, because right now it looks like he's rolling on the apples, just because of the way that things are positioned. So for me, I think that because of the way that it centers that way, I'm going to move this equidistance. I'm going to move it up just a bit higher. Yeah, and I think that's going to be pretty good. Again, not identical to what it is in the movie, but pretty stinking good, considering the process we took to do this. So I'm just going to test it here. So that's on the outside of the frame. Oh, that's on the outside of it. There's some little dust specks. Okay, so this looks really good. I'm really excited about this. I'm going to put this to the side for now. I'm going to go ahead and tape down the rest of the cell. My philosophy on cells like this is I like to put a little bit more tape, especially at the top, as it will be hanging. And some people recommend that you don't put as much tape on it because you want it to be able you don't want to put tape on it so that as it moves and shifts and changes, it doesn't wrinkle, warp, and all those types of things. I have not had much problem with this tape that I'm using right here. I've had a pretty good track record with it, and it's also very loose, so I feel like I've actually encountered a cell or two. I'm just sort of, and I'm using my bare hands here, which I should. I'm just trying to get a rough position where there's not as many bubbles. So I do leave some areas there for it to have a little bit of breathing room. But also I have gone into some of these frames that have used this tape, and I've only put like 4 pieces of tape, and some of them have fallen off. And so actually, the cell is like, hanging or something like that. So I had that with a couple cells, less expensive cells, nothing major. But I had that happen. I was like, geez, I really don't want that again. So I started putting more tape on there just to kind of make sure they were secure. And I haven't had any problems since. But it is not a strong tape, and that's by design for the archival quality, and that adhesive isn't as strong, and so that's really great. But I want to make sure that it does stick around there. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and put this on the back here. Take a look. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just close a couple of these so we can look, and I'll close the rest later. Yeah, so when we look at this compared to the original drawing, it's pretty well in the same position. It could be shifted over just a bit more, and yeah, I think overall this is a pretty good looking setup. I think that it's going to look great on my wall. I think that the background looks incredible as compared to the other one. Yeah, so this is just not from that scene. I'll probably save this just in case I want to use it for some other background. But it's not from the original scene in the movie, so I kind of lose some of that context, or if somebody doesn't recognize it, they might recognize it more because of the background with it than if we don't have it with it. So finally, we go ahead and close this up. The last thing I'll do eventually is I'll go ahead and put a little sticker in the upper right-hand corner that says that this is a 16-field cell, one cell setup, 4-ply museum rag mat, and a UV filtered acrylic on the front, and so that way when I look at the back, I know exactly what's inside here. Sometimes it's hard to tell when you've got the setup how many cells are in there, especially if you get 2, 3, 4 or more cells. It's difficult to kind of tell just at first glance how many are actually there. So that'll be the last step for this. But yeah, super excited to have this done. I think this turned out really well. I mean, this cell is a little bigger for the figures that are actually placed on it. And so I chose to kind of frame it in a different way and kind of, keep that focus on those characters specifically. So, if I had to choose this, I would rather have the figures be a little larger. I'd rather have this be a 12-field cell, so I could have framed it a little bit differently. Overall, though, I think it's a really great piece. I'm glad that I have it in my collection. I'm glad that it's framed properly now. I'm glad it's going to look well on my wall. I'm glad about a lot of things. I'm just a glad guy. So thanks for watching the Pop Art Hunter channel. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it's helpful to you. Hopefully you like, subscribe, and comment and all those sorts of things and engage. And we will see you next time right here on the Pop Art Hunter channel.